Hey, hi everyone. Welcome back to the Java series. Today in this video, we'll mainly discuss what is variable and different data type in Java. Variable and data type are very important not only in Java, in every programming language. So before moving into any programming language, you should know how to declare the variables and what are the different data type available. So we will mainly discuss what is variable, different kind of variables we can use, different type of data type. So we have two data types in Java, primitive and non-primitive. So we'll discuss primitive data type in this video. Non-primitive data type, we have a separate video. So we'll discuss um, in the separate videos. Then we'll talk about very interesting part called local variable and global variable. And we are going to use this local variable and global variable concept in Selenium extensively. So we'll give more focus on this and primitive data type. Then we'll see some Java programs to show how exactly we work with primitive data type. So what is variable first of all? So you should know the technical definition as well, just to understand the topic clearly. And this is very important for your interviews as well, because sometimes even a single line can crack your interview. So whatever you answer, just try to give a technical answer. So variable is the name of memory location to store the values. In few minutes, we will declare a variable, we'll store some data. Then you will understand this line clearly. So as of now, variable is just a name of the memory location where we are storing the values. And we use variable to store data, and we will use that data once it is required. So today we'll see different data type and we'll store values and we will use that values in our program. So data type, yes, as we discussed, we have two kind of data type. One is primitive and another is non-primitive. So in primitive data type, we have all these data type. So we'll start with Boolean. So you can see we have 8 data types which comes under primitive data types. And if you notice, every data type start with a small letter. So this data type is nothing but a keyword. So we will use different data type based on our requirement. So let's get started with the first one. We have Boolean. Boolean will accept true and false. So if you see the right hand side, we have the range. It will only accept true and false. It will take default size as 1 bit, and by default it contains value as false. We'll write a program for this. As of now, just we'll do a walkthrough or for all the data types. Char char default size is 2 byte, and it will range from 0 to 65,536 unsigned, and default value will be this. So char will accept a single character like A, B, C, D, A. Like this, it will store the values. And it works on Unicode. Unicode means this char value will be same for all the language. So previously there was one issue like previously, and you can say other programming works on ASCII. So once you navigate or once you use different linguistic keyboards, this char value will change. But Java does not work on ASCII values, it works on Unicode. So it doesn't matter which keyboard you're using, or let's say Chinese keyboard, Japanese keyboard, this char value will not change. So it will take 2 byte. So these two are the separate one. Boolean will be used for different purpose. Char we will be using if we have to store a single character one by one. So the next four which you can see in the left hand side, byte, short, int and long. So these four data types we will use to store decimal values. So decimal value means non-fractional values. So now the main thing which you need to notice is the size here. Byte take 1 byte of memory. So it can only store the value from minus 128 to 127. So now let's say if you want to use byte and you know the range will not exceed from minus 128 to 127, you can use byte and it's efficient as well. But you know, like your size will go beyond 127, then you have to use short. Short will take 2 byte of memory and it contains this range minus 32,768 to plus 32,768. But again, if you know like your value might cross this range, then you can use int. That int have very wide range, as you can see, and it takes 4 byte of memory. And the last one is long. So these four data type will accept decimal values, and based on the requirement you can use. I will highly recommend you to use integer, because by default any decimal value Java will consider as integer, because it contains a very good range. And long, it will take 8 byte of memory, and it contains a huge range. So we'll discuss right now one by one. So byte, short, int, long, this we will use for decimal value, or you can say non-fractional values. Now if you have some fractional values, let's say 10.0, 15.5, 78.3, then we need to use either float or double. So float take less memory, that 4 byte, so this is the range, and double takes 8 byte of memory, and this is the range. By default, every value Java will consider as a double. So in case if you're giving any value, so Java will consider it as a double, because Java don't want to lose any data. So if you don't want to give that value as a double, we can convert into float. So I will show you how you can do this. So I hope this chart is clear for you. Let me repeat once again. Data type 8, boolean for boolean values, true and false, character for single character, A, B, C, byte, short, int, long for decimal values, and the usage will vary based on your requirement. So if you have less value, you can use byte, short. If you have long value, everything can be covered in int. And if you have fractional value, you need to use float or double, and float takes 4 byte of memory, double takes 8 byte of memory. This is the non-primitive data type, so we will discuss in few videos. So we have string, arrays, different classes, interfaces in Java, right? So these all comes under primitive data, non-primitive data type, and every non-primitive data type have a different usage. So let me go back to Eclipse. This is my Eclipse. I will create a fresh project. I will say Java learning. I will click on next, and I will click on finish. This is my project ready. This is my source. This is the references library, which by default Java takes. So right click on the SRC, create a fresh package, and package is nothing but a folder in Windows. So package will start with small letters. If you give capital letter, Java will throw you one warning. It says by convention, package name usually start with the lowercase. Okay, so let's follow the same. And I will say data type demo. So this is our package ready. Now let's create a separate class. Let's say variable demo. Take public static void main, because this will be the entry point for our program. So font size is very less. Let me increase the font size. Color and font, basic, text font, edit. Yes, we can start now. So to start with variables, now it comes into two parts. First is the declaration. So declaration part, let me start with byte first. Or let's take boolean. So let's say I have a status. I will say my status. So this is called the declare part. Declaration, I have not given any, I have not assigned any value. So this is the declaration part, and if you want to assign some value, as we discussed, it will take only true and false. So this is the declaration, this is the initialization. So declaration and initialization. If you want to do in both thing in one line, you can do in this way. I will say new status equal to false. So this is declaration and initialization in one shot, this into two parts. But I will highly recommend you to use this because this is the standard way of using it. So now you can see a small warning here and it says the local variable which you have used, the local variable have not used. So why it is giving warning? Because Java is very restricted or you can say very strict for the memory. So right now you're taking some amount of memory and Java is saying if you're not using this then why you are writing it, you can remove it. So I don't want to remove because I will use now. I will be using system.out.println to print the values. System.out.println. Println means next line. And here in double quotes, whatever value I will give in double quotes, it will be considered as a string. So I will say my old status was using plus operator. We can concatenate these values. In the same way, I will just copy paste this and I will say this. My new status is false. So this is our first data type. It contains only true and false. If you give any other value, it will throw you error. So we will use this boolean multiple times in our Selenium. So please make sure you're comfortable with boolean. So now if you run this program, it will directly give you first true and then false. My old status was true and my new status is false. So this is for the boolean. Now let's say you need to work with characters. So let me create another program. And this time I will give char demo. So in this, I will first say char. I will use the direct one. So I will say char a equal to, in single quotes, whatever value you will give, it will be considered as a char. So let's say I want to store m. Let's say I again want to store o. So like this, you can store the values. And if you print this, I will say first char value is a. So it will print OM here, and if I print B, which is nothing but O, so it will print M and O. First char value is M, second char value is O, because we are giving this and we are assigning here. If you run this, same M and O. Now how exactly it works? So once we come to integer part, I will show you. And now I have very interesting fact here. So let's say if I have C and if I give 65 here, you can see it's accepting. And why it is accepting, let me show you one very interesting part here. As we discussed, it works on Unicode. So if I go and check Unicode table in Java, so right now we have given as 65, right? So for 65, it should print this value. So let me print again and I will say this time third char value is C. So it will automatically evaluate what is the Unicode for this and it will print. It will not print 65. It will evaluate the 65 into the corresponding Unicode table and what will be the character it will print. So this is interview questions, like they might ask you in this way. Okay, so in Unicode table for 65 they have A. So let's say if I change from 65 to 70, let's say what it prints. Always save the resources. So they have F. They start with 65, I guess. So this table is, we will not refer. Let's see some other list of Unicode characters. So Java will evaluate automatically your numbers into the respective Unicode and it will print. This is some other one, list of Unicode characters. And let's check one more thing, ASCII table in Java. So we have given 65 first. Yeah, so we gave 65, right? Previously, so it was printing A. This time we gave 70. So 70 is pointing to F. So like this, it will automatically evaluate and it will return you the exact character value. We don't use it, but yes, this is tricky part for your interviews. So in case if they are asking you what if I write character C equal to any value, then you can tell them based on the table, it will evaluate what is the respective character and it will print. So this is mainly for the first two, Boolean and character. Now the very interesting part comes for the next four, byte, short, int, and long. So let me go back. I will create a separate program now, and I will say this is um, int demo. So let's say if I have any value, I will say byte. Um, let's say this is my marks. Marks which I have is 98. So it will accept because the range varies from minus 127 to 128. So it will definitely accept, and I will say my maths marks are plus marks. So as we know, it will directly print 98. Yes. Now let's consider another scenario. I will say total money. And I want to say I have total money of $150 or 150 rupees. Now you can see it's crossing the limit of the byte. As we know, byte can only contains from minus 128 to 127. So Java will start throwing you one error. And if you put mouse over, Java will give you two suggestions. Either you can convert this into the byte because this is crossing the limit. So forcefully you can convert into byte, or else you can convert into the int. So if I select this, Java automatically will convert the byte into integer. But we know about if we don't want to use byte, we have short as well. Short will accept because short have the range from minus 3 to 7682 particular value. So short will get the value and I can print here. Interesting, right? Now what if short also is crossing the limit? Let's say I want to store the phone number, and phone number we cannot store in short. So if I again say short my mobile number and say any random value, now again it will throw error because now it's crossing the limit of short. It again says you can convert into integer. And I will say my new number is my mobile. So you can see the importance of each and every data type. Now if I know I will never cross 127, I will definitely use byte. If I know the certain range of my data, I will widely use this. But generally in Selenium, we will use the integer because sometimes we need to read the phone numbers, sometimes we need to read any random amount. So better on a safer side, we will consider everything as an int. And the last part is your long. So if you have any value which is crossing the integer limit, which is very rare, then you can use long. Now one question for all of you. Uh, if you see here, okay, let me rename it. What if I store everything into the long? I know long can contains everything, then why should I go with byte, short, int, and long? So Java says you can keep everything in long, but let's say if you're using only two digit of number, let's say 25 or 15, you are not utilizing the memory wisely because 15 easily can be stored in byte, which takes only 1 byte of memory, but why you're taking long, which takes 8 byte of memory? Okay, so if you're working with a developer environment, then you need to take care of this memory space because it will help you to run your application faster. So we'll mainly stick to the integer part in Selenium. So if you have any big range, then you can use this long as well. Now it's crossing the long as well. So let's run it. It's working. So this is from the decimal, so byte, short, int, and long. So let's create a separate class for float and double. So I will say float demo. Again, I will take public static void main. Now from this program, you will get one interview question. Let's say if I start writing float, but let me show you what if I do in int. If I say int and I will say my marks, my marks can vary from 60, let's say this is my marks. So Java will ask you like either you can convert this data into the integer because in the left hand side you have integer, or else you can change the type of my marks to double. Okay, so let's do this. As I know float takes less value, sorry, less memory, it takes 4 byte. So I will store into float. Now still you will get this error message, and the reason why it is giving, by default Java will consider any fractional value as a double because Java don't want to lose any data. So Java will always consider every fractional value as a double. So it is again giving you two options. So let's use the first one now. What we are doing here, we are converting this particular data forcefully into the float, then we are storing. So this is known as typecasting. We are converting from double to float. If you're still not clear, let me show you one more thing. Let's say my maths mark, and this time let's say I'm storing other value. So again, this will consider this as a double, but we are storing in a float. So now you have another option. You can forcefully say it's a floating value, boss. Don't consider it as a double. Then Java will not force you to convert into double. So first way, either you can mention this is called the typecasting, like this particular data is a kind of float, or else you can use F symbol just to mention this is your floating value. And double is very straightforward. I will say my new marks. If I give any value in decimal, by default it considered as a double and we're storing a double, so it will not be any issue. Now you can directly print. So I will say system dot out dot println. And here I will say, let me mention the variable names directly. will copy paste this 3 times. So this data type is very interesting part if you check this closely. And if you know this data type, then you can use the effective memory. So if you're working with a developer and you are switching to a development environment, then this will help you a lot. So as of now, simply I'm printing. So let me repeat again. By default, it was accepting this as a double, so I converted into the float and I'm storing into a float. Second time I mentioned this F symbol just to make sure this is not double, this is float. This is obviously double, so it will accept. Now if you run this, you will get all this. Now one more thing which will be completely new for you. Let's say if I have any value, let's say integer a equal to 45.4445. So as we know, it's a double value and we are trying to store into integer. But if I forcefully typecast no, I want this as an integer. So what Java will do, let's run. You can see it's terminating after fractional value and it will give you this particular part. So let's say if I have 49. So Java will say, okay, if you want to consider this data type as integer, I'm okay, but I will terminate this part and I will only store this particular value. So this is called the typecasting, and as the name says, you are converting from double to integer, right? Double take 8 byte of memory, integer take 4. So you're typecasting from 8 to 4, it is known as downcasting. We have upcasting as well that we will discuss in few videos. This particular scenario is known as downcasting. So downcasting in other words, when you are converting from higher data type to lower data type. So this is what about the primitive, non-primitive we'll discuss. Now two new facts which I want to discuss with you is the local variable and the global variable. So the local variable contains the garbage values and global variable contains either null or default values. So just remember these 2 points. I want to show you one small program on this. So I will create a separate program. I will say variable demo 2 or let's say 1. So as the name says local variable. So local variable, let's say if I don't want to give any value here and if I try to print this, what will happen? Java will ask you, because right now if you have not defined any value here, it will contains garbage value, and Java does not um, depends on garbage value. So if you put mouse over, it says the local variable may have not been initialized. So if you give any value 0 or 1, then only it will run, otherwise it will keep throwing you error and it will say like please initialize some default value or some random value to the local variable. Now why it is local? Because this is applicable. So this integer have the limitation till this main method. Now if you take the global variable is the variable which you will define as the class level. It is not inside any method, which will be called as a global variable. So let's say if I don't give any value here, and we'll discuss this point. If you want to use any variable inside a static method, it should be static. Don't worry, this point I will cover in the later video. The main motto of showing you this part, so you can see for my number, that is the global variable, I have not initialized any value. I have not initialized, but still it is not giving me error. But for local variable, if I don't give any value, it will keep throwing me error because local variable contains the garbage values, but global variables by default assigned to null or any default value. So if I run this program, You can say 0, 0 because here it is 0. If I change to 78, you'll get 78 for this. And for my number again 0 because for integer by default value is 0. So this was all about the data type and the variable. In next videos, we'll discuss about the non-primitive data type. And in the non-primitive, the main part is the arrays and string. If you know these two data types, you can handle any problem in Selenium. So we'll discuss soon. This is what I have for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Have a nice day.